Sugar.
The older I get, the more The Last of Us makes sense to me, man. Do I really have to elaborate on why that is? You know it's a masterpiece, I know it's a masterpiece, and even though this IP has been perhaps overly saturated and milked over the last few years to some extent, you cannot question the emotional weight and lingering feelings it leaves upon whoever experiences it. Us Naughty Dog fans have been thoroughly starved these last few years, but this PS5 remake that was released back in 2022 brought about an even more beautiful experience than the other 100 remasters anyway, due to it embodying Naughty Dog's insanely impressive visuals. It definitely shouldn't have cost 70 quid, I can't lie, but it does have a really sweet platinum journey that's far less tedious than the former on PS4, as there's no multiplayer mode. We still think about you. Factions 2, why did you get scrapped?
You piece of shit!
All this platinum demands from us today is to complete the game whilst popping a few miscellaneous trophies, as well as acquiring all collectibles scattered around in every chapter. These collectibles being the artifacts, the optional conversations, firefly pendants, shift doors, training manuals, comics, workbenches, tools, and finally the safes. So without further ado, let's revisit some of the best storytelling PlayStation has to offer. It's September 26th, 2013, Austin, Texas. We're introduced to Joel Miller, our main playable character, who's a single father living with his daughter Sarah. On the night of his birthday, a sudden outbreak of a very severe brain infection originating from an unknown fungus rapidly spreads throughout the United States. As Joel and Sarah meet up with his brother Tommy, they attempt to flee the area, but everything turns south as they succumb to a nearly fatal car crash. Now we're on foot, and we get a glimpse into the amount of death and destruction that's going to be unleashed for the remainder of this game and story. Joel and Sarah are briefly separated from Tommy as they attempt to escape the madness unfolding all around them. We encounter a lone soldier who is ordered to open fire on the two by the superiors. Despite the guilt and tone of his voice, the soldier has to go through this tragic demand, so he lifts his rifle and open fires. Joel and Sarah fall down a hill and are separated from each other by only a few feet. When the soldier is about to execute Joel, Uncle Tommy comes in to save the day and plants a bullet into the trooper's head. Joel survives this attack with minor injuries, but it's too late. We're led into one of gaming's greatest and most heartbreaking openings of all time, as a young Sarah Miller perishes in Joel's arms. Every time, I'm emotionally compromised, man. That's the first 20 minutes of a 10-hour video game. How'd you do it, Neil Druckmann? I can't explain this better than you, bro. What? How?
I'm gonna kill your kid in front of you.
Following the prologue, the storyline cuts to 20 years later in the summer of 2033. Joel is now a hard done by and deeply feared smuggler in a bleak, post-apocalyptic society based in Boston, QZ, with his partner and friend Tess, where they will frequently sneak out of the city illegally to trade with other survivors. The two of us set out to seek and track down a local arms dealer named Robert, who had stolen guns from them and who had sent said men that tried to assassinate Tess. We make our way through an old derelict house where we find our first collectible, this one being a firefly pendant, and there's roughly 30 of these that we will need to collect on our adventure. We come across our first lot of infected, and I may have forgot there's no dodge mechanic. Everyone experiences this when they play, when they go from part 2 to 1, I swear. It's really fucking annoying. We scrap and take down an entire team of blokes who are protecting Robert, and even Peter Parker's here. Would you believe it? Motherfucker! Obviously, this duo ain't gonna let it slide. They need their merchandise back, so we force our way through the gentleman with relative ease, and our lovely power couple finally find Robert. He confesses that he had sold the guns because he owed them to the Fireflies. In case you don't know, I'm sure you do, but the Fireflies are a revolutionary militia group featured as the antagonist/protagonist faction in the Last of Us world. Angered by this revelation anyway, Tess shoots Robert twice in the head, and the two decide to look for the Fireflies to retrieve their merch. They encounter Marlene, who is the head of the Fireflies, and she tells them that she will part with the guns and double the payment if they agree to smuggle something out of the city for her. I wonder who or what that is. At Marlene's safe house, it's revealed that they will be smuggling a young, snotty girl by the name of Ellie. Tess and Joel split up, with Tess following Marlene back to her camp to confirm that she has their payment, and Joel escorts Ellie back to their own safe house to wait for Tess. Tess returns and the three of them set off for the drop-off point that the other Fireflies will be waiting to receive Ellie at the Capitol building. Before they get far, however, 2 patrolling military members ambush them, and they are subject to a scan for the cordyceps brain infection as they call for backup. Tess and Joel pass the CBI scan just fine, but before they can get a look at Ellie's scan reading, she panics, and in the heat of the moment she stabs the soldier with her iconic switchblade. Going into combat, both Joel and Tess immediately kill both of them, and it's then revealed that Ellie is infected, but she claims that her bite is 3 weeks old, which is a unique condition as anyone in this world who is bitten by the infected turns within 2 days. Although skeptical, the three escape together as backup arrives, and we flee underground as the soldiers pursue us. Once the soldiers lose track of us, Ellie explains that Marlene believes what happened to her may be the key to finding a cure. Joel is reluctant, but Tess believes that there may be some truth to what she is saying and urges him to consider the drop-off. The three of us fight our way through numerous infected and are even introduced to the highly dreaded clicker variant of the virus. Is anyone else still terrified traversing through the subway station? No, is it just me? One of my heart's biggest burning desires would be to see Naughty Dog cook up a survival horror game. They would literally smoke it. We arrive at the Capitol building only to find that the Fireflies that were supposed to meet up with us are slaughtered. Joel declared that they've tried to go through with this plan, but it's failed, so he proposes that they just return home, which would lead to turning their back on Ellie. Tess then goes on to divulge that she had been bitten on the way to the building, thus concealing her fate. Tess begs Joel to escort Ellie to brother Tommy, as he used to be part of Marlene's group and may have an inkling of how to get her to the Fireflies. Tess stays behind alone to cover them against approaching soldiers, as Joel hesitantly evades with Ellie. We grab the hunting rifle while Tess succumbs to her inevitable death, and this fuels all of our grief into taking out the patrolling soldiers with rage.
Hey, look, we can work something out, okay?
Once they're in a safe spot away from any opposing threats, Joel tells Ellie to never bring Tess up again and to keep their histories to themselves. To me, this is a representation of how Joel suppresses his emotional turmoil by keeping the people he's lost in the past as unacknowledged feelings, basically, which obviously doesn't serve him very well. And I think Ellie catches on to this pretty quick as well. Joel comes up with the idea to visit an acquaintance that owes him a favour so they can procure a working car from him, which would make their process to Tommy a lot quicker. This acquaintance in question being our boy Bill, who is played by W.L. Brown. We make our way through Bill's town and have some nice little character moments between Joe and Ellie. Eventually we track down Bill and he takes us to his safe house where we pop the trophy for picking up a training manual. Bill agrees to escort us to a working car, which is on the other side of town, and I've got to say here, this man going back and forth with his ego whilst he speaks to himself in the third person is so charming. I love it, man.
Barricades again. You neglect the simple shit, and now you're paying for it. You know what that means? Taking all the supplies from the warehouse.
Okay, now he's talking to himself.
Again. Then it'll take
Bill?
Joel. This way.
The writing never gets stale in this game. In case you didn't already know, it's immersive and dynamic as fuck. We also pop a trophy here for recollecting the resentful farewell letter that was written to Bill by Frank. We acquire the ride, but the road trip's cut short as we're ambushed and attacked by a group of hunters in Pittsburgh, forcing us to abandon the pickup truck and escape on foot. This city is swarming with hunters and there's a threat around every corner. Such an iconic part of the game, I love it, and there's a lot of fighting as you would expect. In this deserted school bus, I found a comic for Ellie that in turn pops the Savage Starlight Fan Trophy. After fighting more mindless and savage waves of enemies, we're led into a fancy hotel which contains a safe full of goods. Crafting said goods into all weapon types popped us the Geared Up trophy. Underneath the hotel embodies this incredible Resident Evil-like basement segment that once again still scares the shit out of me and reminds me of how well they could tackle a survival horror game. Please, Naughty Dog, just do it. Within the Hunter's City, we meet a pair of brothers named Sam and Henry who are also trying to escape, and we all agree to work together in order to get out of the city safely. As nighttime arrives, we squad out and I popped the lights out trophy for turning off the generator without getting caught. Eventually though, we do get caught and Sam and Henry abandon Ellie and Joel, and the two are once again left to fend for themselves. As they leave the city, the hunters continue to pursue them in the tank, chasing Joel and Ellie to the edge of the broken bridge. Ellie proposes that they should jump off to escape. Joel doesn't want to because Ellie will drown, she can't swim, but she ignores him and jumps off. Once in the strong current, Joel latches onto Ellie, but before they can do anything, Joel is knocked unconscious by his head slamming into a boulder in the water. He's then awoken by Ellie on the shore of the beach, where they are reunited with Sam and Henry. Angered, Joel shoves Henry down to the ground and points a gun at him, threatening to shoot him because they chose to abandon the two. Henry then explains himself why they had to leave for Sam's safety, and also says that they found Joel and Ellie in the water. Ellie acknowledges this, and they would have drowned if it wasn't for them, so Joel puts the gun down and they all continue their journey to the radio tower. Soon they find an entrance to a sewer, and in here we get our next trophy for hopping on the moving platform before it can depart without us. We navigate through the sewer system and come across some of the best environmental storytelling I've ever seen. If you know, you know. As we leave the bunker, we get ambushed by a pack of infected and eventually reach a suburban neighbourhood. Here I acquired the Combat Ready trophy for maxing out the stats on the 9mm pistol. We also get the Sticky Fingers trophy here for opening all safes. I love the debrief in this town. It feels somewhat safe, like how it would have felt before the infection hit. Obviously though, nothing is ever as it seems in this world, and we're quickly attacked again by another group of hunters, this time including a sniper shooter as well. I've never had this death animation until now, but this gave me chills. This is actually quite unsettling, I can't lie. I forget how fucking deep this game is.
Holy shit!
I'm gonna be a dad.
I'm gonna kill your kid.
Joel manages to take all of the hunters out, but the noise from the fight attracts hordes of infected, causing the group to flee from the suburbs. Once they reach the radio tower, they spend the night indoors and reminisce on personal memories before the outbreak. Ellie goes into the other room and Sam is seen taking stock of the food that they've collected. Ellie notices that Sam is particularly upset and they have a deep existential conversation about meaning, religion, nihilism, becoming infected, and even their roles in the world. It's very sweet and probably my favourite cutscene in the game. After they talk, they both say goodnight and spend the night in the radio tower. They all wake up and Henry is making breakfast. Ellie decides to wake Sam up for brekkie, only to discover that he had been bitten in their last encounter with the infected. Obviously, he had turned overnight. He attacks Ellie and Joel goes to shoot Sam with the shotgun pistol. Bro, this thing would have taken off both of their heads. Has anybody ever noticed this? This actually made me come to the epiphany that surely this was this intentional on Neil's part?
I'm gonna kill.
Like, if Joel had shot Sam, maybe Ellie would have died too by getting caught in the crosshairs, if you know what I mean? Like, the spread of those shotgun shells would have taken them both out if Joel shot that fucking gun. Who knows? That's actually a kind of crazy theory, damn. Henry shoots the gun out of Joel's hand, concerned for his brother. A gunshot is heard and we pan to a shocked Henry and a deceased Sam. Henry, in a state of great anger and grief, first blames Joel and Sam's fate and points his gun at him. Joel tells him to take it easy and that it's nobody's fault, but Henry changes his mind and chooses to shoot himself instead. Absolute chills.
Oh my god!
Our two main characters continue their journey to find Tommy. The two discuss Joel's relationship with his brother, which he admits is not ideal. They soon reach a closed gate leading to a dam. We complete some environmental puzzles and leave Ellie hanging, which earns us a trophy.
Just like 5. Just 5 seconds.
Finally, we arrive to the front gate, which is guarded by several armed people. As this woman interrogates Joel and Ellie, Tommy recognises Joel and opens the gate for him. He introduces the woman as his wife Maria and they all head inside. Within the walls, Maria brings Ellie to get some food and Tommy gives Joel a tour of the power plant. It's here where we find Buckley the dog, which is something the developers included to pay homage to Troy Baker's dog in real life. Once our boys are alone, Joel tells Tommy about Ellie and her unique condition. Joel orders that Tommy finishes the job and he collects the payment from Marlene. He refuses to help and the two begin to quarrel, but their argument is cut short as a pack of bandits show up and attack the base. We both fight our way back to Maria and Ellie, and upon seeing his brother's apparent love for Ellie, Tommy makes up his mind and decides to help deliver Ellie to the Fireflies. He discusses this with Maria, who is evidently distraught and against their plan. Ellie listens in on this conversation and picks it up instantaneously that Joel is going to be handing her off to Tommy. Upset by this, she steals a horse and takes off into the woods alone. When Joel and Tommy learn of Ellie's disappearance, they each grab a horse and look for her together. The lads find Ellie in an abandoned ranch house where Ellie accuses Joel of planning to leave her with Tommy, and that he wanted to get rid of her the entire time. He argues that she would be safer with Tommy, but then Ellie brings up Sarah, saying how she isn't her. This greatly upsets Joel and prompts him to say,
You're not my daughter. And I sure as hell ain't your dad.
Tommy bursts into the room and tells us that bandits have invaded the house. They fight their way out of the ranch and start to head back to the dam on horseback. Joel thinks back to his argument with Ellie, and in a change of heart he announces that he has decided to continue the journey with Ellie himself. He tells her to return the horse she took, and the two ride off together as they part ways with Tommy. Now we're at the University of Eastern Colorado, as Tommy told them that the Fireflies lab is located there. As they search the school buildings for the lab, it becomes increasingly obvious that the school had been abandoned for quite some time. When they finally find a recorder that tells them of the current situation and whereabouts of the Fireflies, they are spotted by another group of survivors that start to attack them. As we try to escape from the school grounds, we pop the trophy for getting a kill with every melee weapon fully upgraded. Joel is then attacked and pushed over a railing by one of the ops. They both fall 2 stories down, and Joel is impaled through the stomach by a metal beam, which leaves him severely wounded and struggling to walk. Ellie encourages him to walk as she fends off anyone who gets in their way, but this bloke has got far too much toxic pride. Let go of the alpha bullshit, my bro. You ain't immortal. They eventually escape to their horse outside, she helps him get on, and they ride away from the school together. A while later, Ellie looks back and declares that they're safe for now, but Joel is still severely wounded and bleeding. Unable to hold on any longer, he falls unconscious from blood loss, leaving Ellie completely panicked, vulnerable and unsure of what to do. We cut to black, and I decided to go straight into the Left Behind DLC here. This bonus story basically switches back and forth between past and present, the past being context for Ellie and her friend Riley in Boston that plays as a prequel, and the present part of the story being Ellie alone in Colorado as she searches for the supplies to fix up Joel after what happened at the uni. There's a few fun trophies in this DLC, so I'm just going to skim through them. The first was for winning the brick throwing contest with Riley, the second was for getting through all of Ellie's horrible jokes, the third was for finding the Jack X machine, the fourth was for winning the Angel Knives QTE minigame, and the final trophy we popped in the prequel segment was for winning the water gun fight against Riley. Back in Colorado now, I got the live bait trophy for luring the infected to the hunters, which is a mechanic they designed for this DLC in particular and later innovated upon in The Last of Us 2. The end of this DLC shows us how Ellie and Riley get infected and how Ellie storms through a load of hunters to save Joel. And with that, we had the Don't Go trophy for completing Left Behind. Back to the base game now, Ellie is out hunting in the snow by herself. She notices a buck in the distance and follows it quietly. We managed to shoot it twice, following the blood trail to an abandoned shack, where the stag finally succumbs to its wounds. She is then approached by 2 men by the names of David and James, who offered to trade supplies with her in exchange for the deer. Ellie is extremely cautious and frantically asks them for some antibiotics for Joel. David attempts to befriend Ellie, but she's skeptical of his seemingly good nature and refuses to reveal any information about herself, respectfully. Ellie takes David's rifle away from him while James retrieves the medicine. Before long, they hear infected approaching. David then pulls out a pistol and asks for his rifle back, but she says no. They then work together to fight them off, and boy, anyone who's played this on grounded mode know how painful it is. Ellie and David fighting together here is a great way of gaslighting the player as well, because it makes us trust David initially. Obviously though, when they are safe from infected again, David reveals that the group of men who attacked her and Joel at the university were part of his group. Sensing that she's in trouble, Ellie reaches for a weapon, but finds that she is outnumbered, as James has returned with the meds. David tells James to let her go and to give her the medicine, which he does. Ellie dips with Callus the horse back to the garage of an abandoned house where Joel is resting. She gives him the antibiotics and falls asleep next to him while we are presented with the most beautiful camera shot in the entire game. In my opinion, I love this shot. When she wakes up, she discovers that David's group had tracked her down and she has no choice but to leave Joel behind as she attempts to draw them away from him. She takes off on Callus, who is shot shortly after the men chase them. Ellie escapes on foot and avoids them for the most part, but David catches up to her and does the cartoony knockout thing. Ellie wakes up in a cage and the first thing she sees is James butchering a human body, which obviously scares the shit out of her. David approaches her and once again attempts to get on her good side, claiming that he convinced the others to keep her alive. Ellie still doesn't trust him and breaks his finger in an attempt to grab the keys to the cage from him. He grabs her arm and slams her against the door of the cage, wounding her. Finally, out of patience and temper, David leaves the room and darkly threatens to have her cut up into little pieces. Some trauma-fueling shit. Meanwhile, Joel finally wakes up and notices Ellie is missing. He desperately looks for her, killing the rest of the men that had tracked Ellie back to the house. He captures 2 and tortures them until they give up the location of the resort David had taken Ellie. then kills both of them and sets out looking for her. Back at the resort, James roughly wakens Ellie up and hauls her up to the butcher table with David. Ellie fights against both of the men and she bites David in the struggle. Before David could throw the butcher knife down to her, Ellie reveals that she is infected. As James and David stand shocked, she grabs the butcher knife from them and buries it into James's neck, narrowly escaping as David shoots at her. As she navigates around this little town, she tries to find a way out. She soon ends up in a restaurant where David has her trapped. The restaurant catches on fire as Ellie sneaks around trying to stab David with her switchblade before he can catch her. They fight for a while but are both knocked unconscious in the struggle. Outside, Joel has finally arrived at the resort and is scouring the area to look for her. He soon notices the burning restaurant and attempts to head inside to investigate. Inside the restaurant, Ellie regains consciousness first and spots David's machete under a bench. As she attempts to retrieve it, David wakes up also and he kicks her several times and pins her to the ground. Ellie finally grabs a hold of the machete and violently hacks David to death with it. Joel finally makes his way into the building and takes this weapon from her. She is at first afraid that it's one of David's men, but Joel brings Ellie back to her senses. She sobs in Joel's arm as he tells her some reassuring words. The two both leave and the camera pans down to the bloodied up handle of the machete which is still buried in David's face. It's April 28th, 2034 and the final stretch of the adventure. Joel spots the St. Mary's Hospital mentioned in the Firefly's recorder and points it out to Ellie, who seems to be in a trance whilst looking at the deer engraving in the wall, which reminds her of what went down in the resort. They make their way through a highway of abandoned cars and soon reach a decaying bus station. Joel boosts Ellie up onto a platform and she drops a ladder down for him, but she sees something in the distance and hurries off without waiting for him. Confused and worried, we follow as quickly as we can and soon discover that a group of giraffes had roamed into the deserted city, one of which was grazing on the vegetation that had grown around the decaying building they were standing in. The two take turns petting the giraffe, then they lean over the balcony to marvel at the sight of the herd. As they turn to exit the building, Joel realises that they have the option to simply leave all this that they set out to do behind and return back to Tommy's Dam to live out a simpler life. He brings this up to her, but Ellie, determined to reach the hospital and see the mission through, insists that everything they've done to this point can't be for nothing and sets off ahead with determination. Joel looks off into the distance as the giraffes leave, which lands as symbolism for their relationship up to this point. Soon, we arrive at an area set up with medical tents and Pop's sharpest tool in the shed for collecting all tools. Joel recalls that shortly after the outbreak, he ended up in a similar location and witnessed broken families everywhere. For the first time, Ellie brings up Sarah without angering Joel, and this fucking dialogue between the two, accompanied by that fucking music, can and will make a grown man cry, I don't care.
Can't imagine losing someone you love like that. Losing everything that you know. I'm sorry, Joel.
That's okay, Ellie.
I'm sorry.
Ellie also offers him a photo of him and Sarah that she secretly took whilst visiting Tommy's Dam. Joel finally accepts the photo and says, no matter how hard you try, you can't escape your past. He then thanks Ellie for it. They make their way into the underground tunnel, much of which has been flooded and infested with the infected. We pop our next trophies for finding all training manuals and workbenches. We help each other through the debris, but soon reach an area with a loose platform. Joel falls off and into a broken down bus where he becomes trapped. As Ellie breaks through a bus window to try and get him out, she is knocked into the water, and Joel escapes through the window and drags Ellie out of the water, who is now unconscious. As he frantically tries to resuscitate her, a Firefly patrol approaches them and train their weapons on Joel, ordering him to put his hands in the air. He ignores them in this state of panic and dread, still trying to rescue Ellie, and is knocked out by one of the Fireflies. Joel wakes up in a hospital bed with Marlene by his side. She welcomes him to the Fireflies and reassures him that they have rescued Ellie as well. When he asks to see her, she reveals that they are already preparing her for surgery, a survival process to remove the mutated infection within her and reverse engineer a vaccine from it. The truth dawns on Joel as he points out that the infection grows all over the brain, meaning Ellie will have to die in order for them to successfully extract it. It will be the ultimate sacrifice. He demands that they find something else for it, and the tension in the room grows. Marlene and Joel begin fighting about Ellie's fate, and a Firefly in the room knocks him to the ground. Marlene justifies that there is no other option, and orders the trooper to march him out. As he is escorted out, Joel spots his backpack and belongings on a counter and quickly attacks the soldier. He learns that Ellie is located in an operating room on the top floor before killing him, and quickly retrieves his things to save her. The gunshots alert and attract the attention of the other Fireflies, and they soon discover Joel has escaped and is on the loose. We find the final shiv door and collect every Firefly pendant with all the materials and ammunition we've collected. We finally commit to a massacre to save Ellie. Joel goes absolutely sicko mode on the soldiers, and eventually we find an artifact which leads us to the operating room alone, where a surgeon and his 2 assistants stand around Ellie. This surgeon will play a massive role in the next game. I'm sure you already know that. They all back away as Joel approaches, but the doctor attempts to stop him from taking Ellie from the operating table and carries her out of the room as the Fireflies close in on him. He runs throughout the first floor trying to find a way out. He eventually manages to reach an elevator in the nick of time and heads down to the underground parking lot, where he is stopped by Marlene. With Marlene's gun pointed on Joel, she makes a desperate final attempt to change his mind, reasoning that Ellie would rather die from the vaccine than escape with him. Joel thinks about her gruesome words. As she lowers her guard and tells him that he can still do the right thing, the scene cuts away to Joel driving away from the hospital, seemingly alone. Joel drives in silence for some time, then a bit of stirring can be heard in the background as the camera is panned to Ellie waking up in the back seat. She asks him what happened and instantly Joel lies to her as he recalls the events that transpired in the parking lot. He had shot Marlene to prevent her from coming after Ellie, but tells her that the Fireflies have already stopped looking for a cure, and that she is not the only human immune to the infection. Ellie turns away silently in disappointment and Joel apologises as he continues to drive back to reunite with Tommy and Jackson.
Wait! Let me go. Please.
You just come after her.
As we approach Jackson, Joel is looking under the hood of their vehicle, and a still dejected Ellie lightly traces her infected bite wound as she thinks about their trip to the Fireflies lab. On the way there, Ellie finds the final comic to add to her collection and stops Joel to confront him about his version of events that went down at the hospital. She expresses survivor's guilt and goes on to mention all of her friends who have died and succumbed to the infections and wonders if she could have done more to end the pandemic. She then asks Joel to swear to her that everything he told her about the Fireflies is true, and he does. She hesitantly accepts his answer. We cut to black and are left there to digest the journey we've just been on. And that is The Last of Us, and we end up on the most ambiguous cliffhanger of all time. Is this the start of the downfall of Ellie? Were Joel's actions justified? Was it worth it? What would you have done? Ultimately, you decide, I guess. Until part 2 comes along, that is. Just pretend that game ain't out yet, okay? Just pretend. Where is part 3? The final trophy I missed was located in the DLC for conversing with Riley, and this in turn we net the platinum.
True horror tales, accounts of real monsters.
The Last of Us is still to this day Naughty Dog's magnum opus, and it really did set the landscape and standard for the games we're playing these days. It's a masterpiece. I don't need to say anymore. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Make sure to like and subscribe if you did. I will get around to part 2, just be patient with me. I'll likely do it next year, to be honest. That game, in my opinion, is just as good as well. Anyway, look after yourselves, stay safe, and I'll see you next time.
I'm gonna kill your kid in front of you.